Well, this is a bit different, and much to my surprise to literally anyone who's been following me for quite some time now, it's time to do a list. But one that I think I need to go a little more backstory. Yeah, before we begin, I have my reasons why I didn't do this list beforehand, though. Now, I'm probably going to be in the minority when I say this, guys, but I personally feel like I shouldn't have done those take-ons. Don't get me wrong, I did get enough to say, like, say, Star Giant Productions and say, let's talk about for, say, Magenta, because, like it or not, those videos are probably ones that type had a lot more to say than I thought it would have. And it goes without saying that I think out of all the other take-ons, those two, along with the Let's Talk About, are probably ones that I've done so far, though. By the way, there is one thing that hasn't aged well with the video of Zion Magenta, but honestly, I have my reason why that is, though. See, the reason why I'm not going to talk about Inside Out Fan in 2001 or whatever you want to call him, Trolls Band Together 2001, it goes without saying, I'm just going to go ahead and say I'm not going to do that video anytime soon. And honestly, I know that's disappointing to my fans, but really, I need a break from the drama anyways, though. Plus, I shouldn't have done those take-ons to begin with because despite how many people requested me to do some that actually turn out to be, well, not just bad people, but also people that went somewhere fall off the roof. I go so far as to say I'm not doing those take-ons whatsoever anymore. So you can see why that is. The second reason why I didn't do this list is also due to the fact I didn't have enough energy. Yeah, when you don't have enough energy to do something that you want to do, it's best not to do it anyways until you're up to do it though. So that's one of the reasons why I can't really do it per se. Although to be fair, I know some people are pretty much in the minority when I say this though, but I'm kind of glad that I really do have energy to do it now because I don't have to worry about what happened last year, even though it's more of a roller coaster than anything, but still. And the third and the most prominent reason has to do to one thing. Due to the fact that I didn't have enough Josei anime on my list as is, I decided to cover it now so I can get so hard to get it over with though. So, with all that said, however, it's finally time for me to talk because I did explain a different video, although unfortunately I pronounced it wrong in that video. Yeah, I'm bad with pronouncing words, guys. I think it's being more of an older counterpart of shoujo, but I like to think of it this way: we're saying it is mostly aimed at adult men. Jose is mostly aimed at adult women, or leeway really are though. There probably are others that I haven't looked into though, but honestly, we're only looking at ones that I've seen so far though. The main gimmick of Jose is that it's the older counterpart of shoujo, where shoujo is more into the preteen and it's like say they can go into comedy, magical girl, high school romance, and sometimes in the combination they can dip into other genres if they want to. It's not quite often you see them, but they do follow under stuff on the shoujo category. But where it's more aimed at preteen and teen girls, saying is more aimed at to older adult women. They usually revolve around, say, slice of life, coming of age, romance as well, and usually they work on something like, say, a workplace or something along the lines of how adult years ahead. Though on some level, they do follow under these year categories. Like, say, they'll follow a teenager protagonist, but usually adult protagonists are what they are. And quite honestly, while I will admit there are going to be rules here, I thought that I might as well just say I've only seen a handful of these Josei anime, so I'm just gonna come out and say it. I really feel disappointed that I didn't do 15 or 20 though. If I had enough time from not just last year but this year as well, I probably wouldn't have stretched this video out for a few rules. Rule number one: the series itself has to be Jose related, but if it's something that shifted from shojo to Jose, I'm gonna put it on this list because quite honestly, I don't know when else I'm gonna do it. And honestly, I might as well just say this for the record: only two of shows, which I'll explain in the video, are gonna be Jose hey, related when it comes right down to it, though. So if there's something that's shojo and jose, I had to look up on Wikipedia to find out what these demographics are, or some sites that will tell me on that. Number two, if there's a series on this here list that I have not seen, there's chances are there's gonna be, well, just that a show that I've seen so far, and one that I need to give it a chance to show what that I like about it, and to read on stuff on there though. And thirdly, and I know some people are gonna click off this video when I say this, but it has to be addressed. I'm not putting Nana on the list. Series that I still love, even to while watching it around in December of 2024. Yeah, I'm late to the party, but still. The only reason why I'm not covering that series on this list is because it was Shoujo magazine, if anything to judge by, though. And honestly, as much as I hate to say that, though, yeah, I'm gonna probably piss some people off when I don't put Nana on the list. But don't worry, I already have one of Ai's was other works on here. Though admittedly, you probably know what that is if you're from the demographic. But let's not waste any more time. This is my favorite it's, Jose anime so far. Let's go. So you're probably asking yourself the question right now when thinking about it for a sec. What was my first intro to the Jose demographic? Well, this may not be a surprise to almost anyone if you're part of this demographic or heard of anything though, but my intro to it would have to be Princess Jellyfish. Yeah, this was my intro to it back in November or December of 2021 when I was still seeking more female demographic stuff from my chart way of getting introduced to this series. Though, admittedly, you're talking to someone who had a weird intro to a lot of stuff, so bear with that for just a second, though. Anyways, the series itself is one that's really caught my attention pretty well, though. The series itself focuses around our main protagonist, Tsukimi, a young, a sexually awkward teenage girl who, like, no exaggeration, they really are. They have special interests, they have weird taste in some media, and they don't have any boyfriends. Yeah. But the apartment does make sense why it doesn't. They don't have any boyfriends there because the apartment itself doesn't really allow boys there, though. However, after one night when and Tsukimi decides to have a stroll at night, though, she witnesses a jellyfish that seems to be close to dying, though. However, after realizing and her best to try to save it, though, she responds, "This guy is not. That's all of they appear to be, though. But it seems like they seem to help out Tsukimi to rescue the jellyfish because Tsukimi decides to have Kurosake stay for the night, though, until, with a shock, the next morning, it seems like Kurosake is not a woman, but rather a man cross dressing as a woman. So now Tsukimi, while still having her awkward secret, while the other girls trying to keep the apartment from shutting down and such, which doesn't come until later on, though. Now, I will say for a series like this, it doesn't sound like a good start for some people, but personally, I think this may be a reason why I wanted to cover a show like Fish. I wasn't introduced to it like some other people, like say the Hero of Tomorrow, who's the person I got my interest in watching stuff that come into anime and as well as other stuff in media. And incidentally, I really think the videos themselves could have have more something like that though. But what we're now called Amino app. For those who don't know, Amino app is basically a community app where you can join in any kind of fan base. It could be almost anything from cartoons to anime to who about say YouTubers. Basically, whatever they have there, they would who saw already though. However, I myself was part of a group chat in the now when they were talking about some anime discussions on there, talking about One Piece, yes, but they also had other stuff there. Princess Jellyfish was the one that popped in my head really well though, and I thought at first it was going to be about a girl that transforms into a jellyfish, but she can turn herself into a princess as well, kind of like Princess Tutu, where a hero who has really turned into a duck, but still manages to turn into a magical girl. But as as time went on, I grew more attached to this anime than it is, though. That being said, however, while the anime itself is known to be pretty much what you expect, socially awkward nerds who are doing whatever they can to keep themselves from having stuff like that. I like how they actually present the socially awkward female characters at glance. Let's get this out of the way. I'm a socially awkward person myself, so I know what's it like when it comes right down to it, though. This series really hit me hard, but it took me a long time to watch it. Despite having 11 episodes long, the reason why it took me so damn long to watch it was due to my schedules every now and then. Yeah, as you can no doubt tell, I'm not good with watching short series when it comes right down to it, though. And quite honestly, I started watching this show in December of 2021, and I had to resume watching it, or in this case, had to start all over to watch it from start to finish this year of January of 2025. Yeah, it took me so goddamn long to watch this show that yet until now. But even with that said, however, I think saying that's going to break anyone's heart, though. While I admit this show is pretty much one of the obvious choices for a Josei anime, I don't think this is going to be the last time you're going to see a must watch show on this year list. I mean, granted, I know some people are going to say to me that they already watched it and they want me to talk more about it, but I think what I like more about it is how they represent how these here girls, or in this case, women, say that there's some stylish boy or girl though. They usually turn to stone like a running gag. So like they're pretty shocked to see what goes on though. None of these girls are portrayed as attractive or anything, but honestly, when Krimzake helps out though, you do get to see how it's like though. And I won't spoil any of these your shows, including this one for you, but let's just say the ending for itself is well, it feels like there was more to it, but I felt like there was to say it had a fun ride while it lasted though. Still, we're for first entry of the Josei list, I still consider Princess Jellyfish a must watch, even if must watch. I also want to say that the series itself has also pretty good animation, though. I mean, it was handled by Brains Base, which I really can't tell you much about because, well, this is pretty much their only work I've seen this far, or by the time I'm making this video. But other than that, though, I do like how expressive sometimes the characters can be, though. Yeah, most of the Josei anime has weird ways of expressing themselves, but so is practically a lot of other stuff, though. So many people have talked about it so far. So give it a watch if you haven't seen it already. But the next show, however, when we're talking about, sorry about that long pause there, I really feel like the next thing we're going to be talking about is one that I don't see on list, though. Maybe it's because it's a guilty pleasure and it's a magical girls series. I do another one next time. So let's get on with Magical Girl Ore. Magical Girl Ore is one of those shows that, well, I say one of them, but it's really the only show I've seen so far that that I've actually did get to binge through all in one day. Granted, I didn't really know what to think of it at first glance, but still, it's one that I really get myself laughing at times. Though the series itself focuses around our main protagonist, Saki, who's a high school student and becomes a newbie, along with their best friend Saiga. Both of them are newbie idols, but as a surprise to literally no one, they don't become popular right away. Though, as such, though the macho girls themselves don't really have a lot going for them as well. Until one day, when Saki realizes that some hero, Saki's best, big brother, older brother, gets kidnapped by these demons, she gets transformed into a JoJo character. Like, she's really muscular and it's weird, and still, I love it though. Basically, it's JoJo mixed with magical girl element though. And honestly, I don't know about you guys, but I find that freaking hilarious. Now, I will say, though, for a series like Magical Girl Or, I know for a fact this one is probably a guilty pleasure of mine. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't say this series show is all bad or anything, but come on, look at the picture and see for yourselves. You would think that they would turn into these cutesy magical girls or something, but in order to turn into these buffy men that they turn into anyways, though, they start selling albums and stuff, though, but only to transform when they say they love somebody. For example, he says that she loves Mahiro, Saya's older brother, but in the strange occurrence events, though, she turns into the Buffy man that she turns out to be. I guess we have homoerotic undertones nowhere else here, though. One thing I will say about this show is that despite what some people may tell you, I think this may be an occurrence where, despite this being one of the weirder entries on this list, though, it's one that I don't hear people talk about a lot of times, though. I can kind of see why some people wouldn't like it. The man service, the underage girls just turning into Buffy guys, though. And at one point, when they start turning into Buffy guys, they uh, start selling albums, if anything to judge by, though. Yeah, this is definitely the case where I feel like if I ever did do a Magical Girl podcast episode, you can bet it's on this list, though. But unlike Q High Earth Defense Club, this is one case where this one never gets brought up or talked about as much. Maybe it's because I'm really used to seeing magical men or vice versa. Yeah, I'm weird that way. I'm a vice versa person myself who likes to see things differently from a different perspective. But honestly, it comes in handy when it comes right down to it. Also, the demons, for some reason, get censored whenever they get beaten up for times, though. I'm guessing that's the beauty of showing it what it is, though. But honestly, I don't think it's that bad by all things considered, though. But one thing's for sure, though, despite this show having a lot of man service, there is a lot of things that made me question a bit, though. Despite this being a Josei series, though, it's also one of those cases where it's a gender bender series. If you're not familiar with the term gender bender, well, think of it like, say, you have the gender now, but what happens if it was vice versa? Like, if you're a girl, you turn into a boy, or if you're a boy, you turn into a girl. I feel like some people are gonna hate me after this episode because I like another magical girl series, but don't be fooled just because does not automatically mean I have to like every one of those their shows, though. And trust me, saying that gives off a pretty good vibe when it comes right. And however, what made me watch this show all the way through in one day would have to be how it made me laugh, though. Granted, I did get hell for it again. Thanks for that. But honestly, it's not anything I didn't really hold myself, well, not what I want to say on camera. Sheesh, I can't even make myself clean when watching it. But oh well. I still consider this show, while yes, a guilty pleasure, it's still one that you can't really say anything else, though. However, I can definitely see why it can be cringy for some people. I mean, at first glance, I thought there was nothing wrong with it, though, but looking at the comments of what they thought about it, yeah, I wouldn't recommend it if you're not into over the top man service or anything. Because let's be honest, though, the only over the top man service people need are JoJo characters. I'm probably too much of a JoJo fangirl at this point, but I don't care. I think it's pretty good though. Also, the animation, it was handled by Studio Puro Plus, not to be confused with Studio Puro. Why are they named almost the same name? Unless they try to think of something clever, but they couldn't though. But yeah, I don't know if it's just me, but does anyone feel like the pink haired one is like either say Madoka or Natsu, whereas say the black haired one is usually someone who looks like Hamaru or something on the lines of Gray from Fairy Tale. I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I always think things a little too much for myself, but I don't think that really takes away from the show, though. I'll get into more detail with this here show in another Magical Girl podcast episode. And yes, I'm going to do this one right away, though, because I have a lot to say about what goes into it. But needless to say, maybe try to give it a chance. But if you don't, I'll try my best to elaborate on what goes on, though. Trust me, it's still one I really recommend watching if you want to see something. So the next show we're going to be talking about right now is one that I already did discuss before now, but this is definitely one of two shows that shifted from shoujo to josei. In this case, Revolution Girl Utena. I already did a Magical Girl podcast episode on this here show, but honestly, the short version of it is that while I won't go into detail of what I thought about it in this video, because you can check that video out for yourself, I think it's about time I tell you guys a little something, though, because there is more to it than that just to add it, though. Now, when I started watching Revolution Girl Utena, there were some people who said that this was ripped off by some other show, like, say, Steven Universe. And look, it's one thing that you don't care about Steven Universe, guys, but you do realize this did have a lot of have influence on a bunch of creators, not just Rebecca Sugar, even though Rebecca Sugar herself did feel inspired by a lot of anime. But if you were gonna say that though, then I'm gonna say that both Shira and the Owl House have no right to have each other get ripped off by this show. And if you're gonna say that's gonna say that's not fair, then to that I say you're making a giant hypocrite out of yourselves. Like, is there a reason why so many people have to do that though? But one thing I don't think I mentioned in my podcast when I did this year's show was how much influence this got from other previous shoujo stuff. In case you guys don't know, Revolutionary Girl Utena was inspired by two other anime that were classics. I can't say much about how to the Princess Knight because I haven't seen it, but I am still currently watching, I think, the Rosa Versailles. He says to the point of making this video. But honestly, I can't really say that much on that part because honestly, despite what some people may tell you, there are a lot of influence of what gets into this show. For example, I mentioned and how much show the show got a lot of impact by audiences, but I also had to mention that how much this show goes into it though. Despite what some people may tell you, this is definitely a magical girl show in my book, though it really doesn't count as one for some people, which I can kind of understand. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Revolution Girl Utena is not really it's just magical girl show though. This is more of a mixture between deconstructions of both magical girl and modern fairy tale genres. And honestly, I think they did pretty well for themselves, despite what some people might tell you. But even with that said, however, I still think they did pretty well into themselves, though. I mean, JC's staff may be something that a lot of people can get into every now and then, but I still think it was such, though. And for what it's worth, I already expressed how much I love this show, and I couldn't have picked a better show to talk about again on my channel in spite of all that. But there was something else that I couldn't talk about without avoiding it, though. Now, I will say I should have talked about more of the voice cast. In case you guys don't know, I only talked about the English voice cast. I didn't really talk about the Japanese voice actors, though. That's not to say I wanted to avoid them or anything, but honestly, I'm just not too familiar with a lot of Seiyu who in my book. There are some I've heard of before, just not a whole lot as I thought I would have though. And coming from someone who watches a lot of English dubs, yeah, this is what I mean by saying that. Utena This voice cast consists of a lot of seiyuu that have way too many for me to name as is, though. But that said, however, I do have something else to say, though. Now, I will admit, though, that despite what some people may tell you, I didn't mention Utena's Japanese voice actor as Tomoko Kawakami. I only didn't mention her because while she is known for voicing Utena, she was known for a lot of stuff. And I know what you're thinking. What does this have to do with adding on to what I think about Utena? Well, there are a few things. For one thing, in case you guys don't know, Akami is no longer with us. She died years ago due to being a victim of ovarian cancer at age 41. And because of that, I didn't want anyone to think I only avoided the voice actress because of this, though. And honestly, I didn't want to make that a messed up part on my end. I mean, I'm all for having Seiyu, though, but even I'll admit, I find it bullshit didn't mention in my video though. But now, because of the time when and I was making that video, especially when it comes right down to it, it was broadcast in a different time. I mentioned that Utena's English voice actress was voiced by Rachel Lillis, who also voiced a lot of anime characters like Misty and Jessie. You might be asking yourself, why am I bringing Rachel Lillis into this kind of conversation? Well, there's a reason for that. See, in case you guys don't know, even though a lot of people already did get the news, but I'm going to say it anyways, Rachel Lillis has passed away in August of 2024 due to breast cancer at age 55. And unfortunately, I didn't mention this in the video, but I had no way of knowing this at the time. See, my Revolutionary Girl Utena podcast episode came out in May. When I got the news that she passed away in August, it was 5 months later. So I had no idea or no way of knowing at that time. And even with that said, I still feel pretty bad for letting this all slide, though. It's in the pinned comment if you want to see it, but honestly, even if you don't like the English voice acting or Central Park Media, then let me require you this. It was Rachel Lillis who brought this cast to life. And I'm not shitting you. Apparently, a lot of people say that the voice acting is bad, but while it feels phoned in a few places, I won't deny that. I don't think it was that bad. I think it did pretty well for itself. But let me tell you, if it wasn't for Rachel Lillis to be in Pokemon or Utena, then probably we would probably never have gotten someone with acting skills. I still think she left a revolutionary that will never let go or let anything slide, though. What Rachel Lillis revolution will never forget for doing this anytime sooner, though. Because if I didn't do this list, I wouldn't have to be so hard on myself for doing so already, though. I know Rachel Lillis isn't here anymore, but her legacy still lives on. Even so, to that I say, why? I mean, I get it. Some anime is going to get remade, though. As of for lately, though, there have been plenty of anime, especially old school anime, that have been getting more and more remakes every time. I'm not against those, but Utena getting a remake? Really? I mean, granted, though, when I brought up Rachel Lillis, though, I didn't know this before now, but she was still in college at age 19 when voicing Utena. As for her other voice actress, who was probably much younger at the time, though, she still maintained to be pretty much what it was, though. My heart does go out to, say, the Rosa Versailles. That series I can see in itself getting remade, but Utena? Maybe I'm a bit biased, but I think it's perfectly fine the way it is. And don't get me wrong, having a series that works well for itself doesn't always hurt though, but I'm just saying, I really feel like there's no need to make a remake out of Utena. Maybe it's because I never grew up with the series and I've watched it since of June of 2023, May or June of 2023. I can't remember for sure because I know it was during the summertime, even though when I was still with my pops and everything. But the reason why I didn't go back to the show sooner, after a few months, when I kept taking few episodes after few episodes, was due to the fact of how I was losing my pops at the time. I didn't want to go back to a show where I felt like I had no other choice but to watch it though. Whenever I'm in a cope loss or anything like that, I just don't feel like doing much of anything. Maybe it's my way of how the spectrum works, though, I wouldn't know. But I do know for a fact that Utena is still a series I still recommend, though. It may not be perfect for some people for the English dub, but if you are more into sub, go right ahead. Both sub and dub are available on YouTube, so we really don't have that hard to watch it though. But I will say, just be careful of what you're watching because there are some heavy stuff here and there though. But other than that, I still, I'll repeat myself again. This is a revolutionary we'll never forget. And with that said, let's move on. So after that, however, we move on to I did say we're gonna do Aizawa's works, and since I not putting Nana on the list because, like I said, it was published by a cookie publisher for a shoujo magazine, I might as well cover one of her other works. In this case, Paradise Kiss. Paradise Kiss, or Parakiss as the fans called it, is one of those shows that really has stuck with me ever since I first heard about it. And honestly, a lot of people have recommended to it, even if those who are more Josei than ever before, though. This was actually the second entry to a lot of people's interest in seeing Josei, but honestly, it's one that is with a lot of people. But for the purpose of this video, though, let's go over what's it about. Well, it's about a high school student by the name of Yukari. Yukari is a high school student who was pressured by her mother because she wants her to study for the college entrance exams. However, after being spotted by a group of fashion designers who call themselves Paradise Kiss, she's immediately kidnapped by them, though, and transformed into the model into their clothing line. Reluctant at first glance, though, Yukari seems to somewhat agree with it, but she's not so sure if she can do it while still having a lot of pressure on her mind, while having a hard time opening up to her emotions at times. Now, I will say for a show like this seems right up my alley because as a person who didn't know what to do when growing up, I kind of relate to Yukari in a lot of ways this way. You actually do see how much pressure she gets into in a lot of cases, though, and the group of fashion designers who come her way, though. That being said, while I will say this is connected to another one of Aizawa's works, it's one that sticks with a lot of people. Are you guys familiar with this previous work known as Neighborhood Stories? Well, that and this here are really connected to each other, not just in terms of the creator, but also in terms of the stories themselves, though. It's honestly one of those shows that I actually think that, in fair cases, I think I gravitated more than I thought would have. For some reason, when I was looking this up, a lot of people I looked up on say that the show is depressing to watch, which, as someone like me who's into a few depressing stories every now and then, if I'm in the mood for it, I didn't really see anything depressing about this show, and I don't really think it's that surprising given how much they did with this here show. Oh, and major props for actually giving a transgender character an actual character, because honestly, I'm sick of people not giving those transgender people a chance, though. That being said, however, what really made me empathize with Yukari is that she also has a hard time following her own dreams and still finding her own identity at times. You do get to see her struggle and you do see where she's coming from. And even with that said, I still think they did pretty well with it though. But what also gravitated into this series a lot more, at least for me, is that I think what really stuck with me is how much it stuck with the art style. Maybe I'm too much into a lot of unique art styles, especially ones I've seen online that are disgusting to look at. But I think that what got me into the art style more is that, unlike Neighborhood Stories, where it was animated by Toei Animation, this was animated by Madhouse. And this won't be the last time you'll be seeing one of Madhouse's Josei works on here, so get used to that. However, I have to confess though, I'm not saying that Toei Animation did a bad job or anything with Neighborhood Stories, but I think what really sets apart from that series to this one is that Neighborhood Stories' animation was, well, Toei Animation's art style that was at the time. It was too cartoony, it was too much for my taste, and it felt like what happens if I drew it. That's how bad it was in some cases, though. And honestly, I think Madhouse polished it better in this direction. Not saying I don't like Toei Animation's work or library or anything, it's just I feel like it wasn't really their expertise here. When Madhouse got to Parakiss and Nana, I think they did very well of itself, though. It looks a lot more polished, a lot more detailed, and art style on the side, though, the writing itself is what made it top notch for me, and I'm all for top notch writing. Though I have to confess, I didn't really watch this show all the way. Though I started watching it last year, but man, did it take me approximately a year to watch this show. I think it was around this time where I started saying to myself that every time I tried to watch an episode, I had to watch one episode per month. So I can at least get them done though. It is only 12 episodes long, but unlike Nana, I'm already finished with Parakiss. But the sad thing is though about that has to do with its creator. But before we get into that, what really made me stay with this here show without dismissing it though would have to be, well, I know it's going to be a weird thing to say, but it has to be said. It's music. This opening and ending theme songs really got to me in a lot of ways that I could not recommend the music enough, though. The opening theme is only called Lonely and Gorgeous. Maybe it's just me when I listen to that theme song, although I can't put it because of copyrights for my channel. I'm just going to say this right here and now. That song is totally banging. It's that good. It makes me feel like I'm going shopping with my girlfriend or something. Like, it's really that popping that I couldn't really recommend it enough. But the ending theme is one I listen to a lot more of, simply called Do You Want To? In this case, it's actually really not a Japanese song, but rather a Hungarian band known as Franz Ferdinand. You may know them more for Take Me Out, if you're familiar with name of the song that they have, but I haven't really listened to a lot of Franz Ferdinand songs. That said, however, Paradise Kiss is still one I recommend if you're not sure what to do with yourself and see what they can go with, though. However, that said, I feel like I'm going to go on to another dour note. It seems like a lot of Josei anime have a lot of dour notes in some of them, but here we are. See, in case you guys don't know, I just wish Aizawa the best to actually get better. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, Aizawa is going through some kind of uncertain illness as of time of making this video. And by the time of making this video, she's only been doing illustrations, not really any more adaptations as of lately, though. So if you're wondering if Paradise Kiss is finished, like I said, that's already been finished with 5 volumes. As for Nana, from what I've heard, even though I haven't finished the series for now because I'm still watching it as of lately, the series itself only has 50 episodes and it's still nowhere finished. This is definitely the case where I think it's where she's along with some other mangaka and some other workers really push themselves too hard though. Think about it. There's World Trigger where Daisuke is still doing pretty much with his illness, and I think they're somewhere ending. I think they are with World Trigger, and then there's also some others like say for example Fushugi Yugi's creator, and there's also the Gray Man's creator. And now we're going through Aizawa's works, anyways. Though, for crying out loud, I really hope and pray that nobody pesters these creators or anything because I understand you guys want them to finish their works though, especially when it comes right down to it. But I think their resting really comes first before anything. Trust me when I say this though, guys. I'm all for having works to get finished, especially ones that really need their endings. But for fuck's sake, I really can't stress this enough. Please let the creators rest easily. I understand you want them to get back to work, but rest is important. I know it's tough, but that's what needs to be said, though. But other than that, Paradise Kiss is still a pretty great series, at least to me, what I've seen of it, though. But there are some people who said that this series is a lot weaker than Nana's, and while I can't say for sure because I haven't seen all of Nana, I do like that show. But even I'll admit, I have to say right off again, it doesn't matter which series is better. Like I said in the Wallflower video, I don't care which series is better. All I'm here for is to get entertained, and that's what I'm here for, though. My issues aside from people bitching about how creators should really get their works done, I still think Paradise Kiss really did very well, especially ones that have struggles with it, though. If you're someone who doesn't know what to do with their life after they graduate high school, then I think you should give Paradise Kiss a watch. Though you're gonna have to watch it on YouTube because, well, if you in case you haven't noticed, I haven't really talked about any streaming services for a lot of these Josei anime. Though I think I may be in a minority when I say that because, like I said, there's a lot of people say that Nana's on Hulu, so you can watch it on there. But that's a shojo series. Even if, in my opinion, I think it should have been on Jose because of the topics. But other than that, yeah, hope a lot of the creators, especially Aizawa, get better soon. So let's move on to the next show. The next show we'll be talking about, however, is one that I already did talk about in enough anyways, though. In this case, Pet Shop of Horrors. Pet Shop of Horrors is the series that made me want to do a Josei list to begin with from since last year. So, despite the series lasting for 4 episodes, though, I feel like there was so much of this show that I really didn't go into detail with. You guys can watch the video for yourself if you want to. It's still there, but over. And yes, before you ask, I did watch this video, but I didn't really watch it, say, on Halloween per se. To this day, it's still know the story by now. Pet Shop of Horrors is the story, or in this case, anthology series of a young pet shop owner. Such though, he gives these strange, rare animals also to give them to the owners, as one does. And as you can, if the rules are broken, any sort of given chance would be out. Indeed, has no reason to telling what happened. And anyway, so because the pet is rightfully for its owner, does any batshit things. Basically, when those are nothing new, but I'm actually a sucker for these. If there's anything new to add on to it, though, because there's not a lot I can say about them that hasn't been said. I've only seen a few so far, and I think they did pretty well for themselves. Like the say Twilight Zone, Hell Girl, we have others I can mention, but if I listed everything, we'd be here all day. It's easy to say that not exactly the oldest anime out there, but honestly, I do like what they did with this, though. And quite honestly, I think it says a lot when you realize that I still think County pretty well, though. I don't know about you guys, but I love Count D. Not just for how cunning he is, but for how much he doesn't even give a shit what some people may say about it. So it doesn't seem like they have one for it. However, I think that has to do with its time period. Like I said before, this is a show that came quickly than it did. And those who grew up with the manga, which unfortunately I had to look up pages online just to see what they were talking about, though, yeah, as I said before, it's getting loose in the UK. So if you were somewhere near the UK or somewhere overseas by there, though, maybe you can give this a watch if you want to, though, and to see what the manga is all about, though. Weakness, not really the sweet tooth weakness. I mean, that in of itself well, seems to be right up anyone's alley. Bounty can actually communicate people by using their blood, and it gets him tiresome to do so already. I don't know character, though I think that's more of a skill than anything, but still, watching that in itself when seeing the manga pages would have been been awesome if they had adapted though. But I think this may have came out when Madhouse was still Jose and practically any mature series out there that they animated. They're just not itself bad or anything. You'll definitely see that they'll do more with a show with it, even if it does so already though. And to some people, they think that you can't do a horror. Why not a horror show up to this point? And they did an anthology, and Madhouse is capable of doing horror stuff. Don't tell me they can't do it. And though, guys, I've seen both Death Note and Monster, and both of them do. I can kind of see why some people would not want to see this made into a different studio, though. Don't believe me? Well, remember when One Punch Man was animated by Madhouse, another studio doing some other anime, if anything. But I'm not gonna lie, it didn't really feel like they had the same budget like Madhouse this or times though. But I feel like JC staff didn't really have the same edge to it that for when is a chance this show could be used in a lot of ways. This could be a chance where they can it's time House's case and still have their rights for it though. I'd be glad to watch it again though. But other than that, I don't know what else to say other than what I've already said though. It's only 4 episodes long, and while I personally think it could have been say 13, or as someone said in the comments before me, 25, or if Madhouse does get their chance to shine with this year's show, then I really hope they don't forget this show and being anthology shows all the time though. It is still one you can watch on Halloween or at your freelance. The only actually on a serving time, and honestly, as someone who's seen a lot of jacked up shit on Amazon Prime with their anime though, like Kite for example, you can pretty much watch it to online at your own risk. At least don't have to pay. Said. So for Madhouse's library, we went on from say a fashion anime to a but it does seem kind of funny when thinking about that at first glance. So let's go over it, shall we? Gokusen is the story of a 23-year-old woman be pretty excited to become a teacher because she has always wanted to do so. Except she goes to an all-male private school along with her colleague and Suze though. Along the way though, while it seems like she faces challenges, these shuttles keep getting themselves into trouble because they're oh she has to keep it a secret before anyone finds out about it though. Now I will say for a show like this, it reminds me of another show where they had something with a teacher in it. Have you guys heard of the show, or in this case, the series GTO or Great Teacher Onizu? In that series, the two shows couldn't be any more different. Not only do they have this different goals and what they want to do to become a teacher, also rely on. And I'm not sure if I find this a coincidence or not, though. But right when I was starting to watch both GTO on Netflix because it came out last year from where I'm from on uh, the Josei demographic, but their art style. I never thought I have to be the one saying this, but I'm just gonna say this right here and now. I personally don't think animation should take away this someone a High Guardian Spice or Mars of Destruction. I never really hated the art style. Yeah, it's nothing special. I will admit that this is animated by a Madhouse again, but honestly, it's one of those shows that I think the only designs I kind of liked on here were Shin, the redhead pretty boy, and Gucci, but all things considered. But I do like what they do with Kumiko in the anime rather than the drama series. Yeah, this is definitely a case where, despite this being an underrated anime, it did get bad. As not find the only thing is how they profess how they made Kumiko. Kumiko in this year's show for the drama series was in the drama series. Kumiko was portrayed as shy and a bit of a wimp. Here, though, she wants in the anime, she wants to fucking kick your ass. And I mean it. She's really one of those characters that, like I said, she's a and Kumi. If you're familiar with the Japanese, but I will say it is shorter than GTO did. Yeah, GTO only 43 plus is shorter, say 13 episodes, and they didn't do less with it though. I did try to look up on pages online for the manga. The manga itself did do what it had though, but I personally think there wasn't enough material to like it's one of the more over up there with Pet Shop of Horrors and Magical Girl. Or I don't see people put this show on their list. Maybe it's because they just think it's a little weak to do so. If you're not familiar with Kira Kiranine, though, she's done a lot of voices that I can't list her whole filmography here, but she most known for voicing Mommy in Madoka Magica. Yeah, on. She has done other works, but I thought I listed only a few here, and she does do pretty well for. I got Gucci and his voice actors. I don't think they did a bad job while doing it. Trust me, it's one of those shows that, while I admit it's a little weaker than GTO, but that doesn't mean it's bad. They're just doing something a bit more different. I mean, let's be honest, they're both also in shows. And yeah, I do give them props for actually putting into a different studio because I'm pretty sure there would have been a lot of people thinking there's plagiarism involved though, but I don't think they are mostly focused on teachers, but they're doing it in different perspectives while still being gangsters in the process. I don't see a lot of those all the time though, but anyone who's watched Kill a Kill where there is a female delinquent, I like it when there's vice versa. Like I said earlier, you can give this a watch, but I can definitely see why people wouldn't watch it if you want to though. The anime is available only on YouTube if you want to watch it on there. The comments also due to the fact they have it under the kids section. I don't know why. There is some swearing involved, so though I still enjoy Gokusen. This took me about a week and a half to watch last year, but regardless of how long it took people, but it's strong enough for me to give a recommendation. Next show we're going to be talking about, however, is one that I was kind of getting nervous about, if I'm being completely honest with you guys. And this one was actually part of my radar for quite some time. I will say I'll talk about both the anime and the manga, but honestly, I want to talk about the anime here and wait till the manga later. In this case, for Father's Day. So in this case, let's talk about Usagi Drop. Usagi Drop is one of those anime that really changed me in a big way. As someone who takes care of kids, although they're more part time than full time, this one really enlightened me more than I thought it would have, though. For those who don't know the story by now, let's go over it. It's about a young man by the name of Daikachi Kawachi, a 30-year-old who seems to be wondrously aiming for his life after somehow waking up from a dream abruptly, though. However, after getting the call from his mother that his grandfather from his mother's side passed away the night before, he's intended to go to the funeral that time, though. Along the way, while going back to his mom's place, however, though, he stumbles upon this mysterious little girl, Father Soichi. After everyone has nothing to do with her because they think she's an embarrassment to the family, Daikachi, rightfully pissed off about this because they want to take her into a care facility. Yeah, because I'm sure a care facility is someplace that a 6-year-old would definitely know what's going to go on. It's not like they're going to get scared or anything. But yeah, apparently Daikachi, sympathizing with Rin at this point, decides to take Rin in and decides to take good care of her, though, while still learning about becoming a parent slash moral guardian in the process, even if it means going through a lot of takes about what it's like to take care of a child, though. No matter what happens, though, Daikachi decides to take Rin on his own while still learning to become a guardian in the process. And yeah, this is definitely the case where, despite this being an older adult while a little kid, though, I kind of nervous though because as someone who's been through trauma with, say, Daikachi, say not Daikachi, what I'm trying to say is that from something like Boku no Pico, I was getting kind of nervous at first glance when watching it because this show made me realize there's a lot more to it than just that. However, this was not animated by Madhouse. We're taking a break from that and moving on to a different studio. This was animated by Production IG. I've seen a few of their works, but honestly, the most I've seen from them were Holic and Blood Sea, but I did hear they were mostly known for Ghost in the Shell. So it's actually pretty nice to see something so much tamer than And you may think, though. That said, however, when it comes right down to it, the animation itself, maybe it's I'm reading too much into it, but looking at this show for myself, I kind of felt like it was made from a storybook that I've seen as a kid. Less outlines and more of the gorgeous animation between it, though. It kind of reminded me of one of those books I've read as a kid and still want someone to read it for me whenever I wanted to hear from them, though. However, with that said, this show really made me want to talk about it on Father's Day. Of course, I didn't get the chance to watch it on Father's Day last year because I watched this a month too late at the time. And Usagi Drop is one of those anime that I still watch again and again with someone in my family. Yeah, no joke. I actually watched this with my family. With one of my family members at this point. In this case, my nana. And when I started watching it with her, though, that funny part where Rin says she sweated the bed instead of wetting it. Yeah, I don't blame her for not wanting to say what it is, though. But honestly, despite this obvious toilet humor, though, I think it's pretty safe bet that I actually found it pretty endearing how these two got along with each other. Even my nana says this is her favorite Josei series out there, despite this being her first and only one she's seen this far, though. The other ones didn't really seem to impact on her like this one did, because my Nana is a mother, and she's the mother of my mom. So it's pretty clear that she really likes it when there's kids around just to see what it's like for a parent to take care of a kid. Well, I admit that this show is really more of a slice of life and coming of age, as do a lot of these year shows I've talked about this far. This one really surprised me in a very interesting way, though. I mean, at first glance, I thought a lot of people said it was only controversial because of the anime, which I didn't understand it at first glance. The anime itself is pretty much what you expect. It's supposed to be more grounded and all that other stuff, though, but I think in this case it did explore more on the male characters route. See, in case you guys don't know, male characters, unlike say in shonen, seinen, or shoujo, where they're a lot more, say, supposed to be action-packed, badass, and idealistic specifically, male characters in specifically in shosei anime really go so far as they're more grounded than they are, though. Maybe I'm probably gonna be a lot more people who is going to say I'm going to get a lot of flack for this, but I personally love it when there's male characters in stuff that are made for a female audience because it actually gives them a lot more leeway with them, though. And trust me, I do like Daikachi. You do get to see him struggling from time to time, asking questions, what's it like to take care of a kid and whatnot. And at one point, he did say he would adopt her because since no one else would take care of Rin since she has nowhere else to go. That's really else to it though. And the characters themselves are believable. You actually get to see not just Daikachi's point of view, but some other characters of that not every kid raises their kid the same way, but they all need their caring and loving by the end. When I showed this show to my nana, she loved it though. And honestly, again and again, she and I would watch it every time. Even when we're done binging through all 11 episodes and 4 short episodes afterwards, she would asked me to put it on again. She really loves these two together as father and daughter, although they're not really they're not really blood related per se. They're more on say relatives from different family members of different sides though. That said, there were only two characters of the show I just straight up couldn't get into. First, Daikachi's younger sister, Kazumi. On one level, I can understand where she's coming from because, like some people said before me, not every adult deserves parents. I can understand that, but she goes so far as to reach out and just bitch about when Rin goes and visits her in the third episode, along with her parents. Though, look, lady, I know you don't want kids of your own, but if you don't want kids, though, calm down. Rin is just there to visit, not just stay with you forever, though. But that's fucking bananas compared to Misako. I could not get into this woman. For those who don't know, even though I can't show you, because if I did that, the video as long as it is, even though if you've seen the show, you would know who Misako is. But if you don't, Misako was Rin's mother. And by mother, I mean she gives child neglection a bad name. And I won't mince words with you. In this show, I hated Misako. Even more so you may think, though. She's just one of those people that thinks her work is more important than her own child, and she couldn't even give her a goodbye or anything. Not even as so far as how's she doing when Daikachi went to talk to her in one episode. This is definitely the case where I have to put my foot down and say, you have no right to be sad when Daikachi decided to take Rin in on his own. You're lucky that he was there, unlike you, who wasn't well known in the family. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you have to have kids in order to and be who you are to grow up though, because not every kid can be taken care of by an adult who can't function properly. But Masako just came off as a neglecting parent that I just could not get into at times. And before you say anything, I get that's the point though. They're trying to show the business of what's it like to go through child neglection, child abandonment, and that lonely reality when no one else is there to take care of you. But it's honestly pretty infuriating when Misako doesn't even go so far as to say how is Rin doing or what has she been doing though. She doesn't even claim to be her mother. Well, I guess we can agree on that though. Other than that, though, aside from that tangent I did, though, you're still gonna get a pretty beautifully animated and then wholesome a show about parenthood, though. It may not be a show for everyone who wants to be a parent. I'm not a parent myself. I'm an aunt, and I'm also a babysitter. So I know from experience that not every kid is going to be alike. But even I'll admit, despite that, however, I do enjoy what this show did, though. And trust me, I think it speaks volumes of what's it like, though. My heart does go out to what they did for the anime. The manga, on the other hand, oh boy. Okay, I'm not going to say about the manga here, but needless to say, like a lot of people said before me, although for being a nosy flamingo as I fucking am, I went to go ahead and check it out for myself. And I regretted my decisions. I'm not going to go into it here though, but on Father's Day, when I do another Usagi Further Thoughts video, I'll be talking more about the manga though, because yeah, for what I can tell, out of all the Josei anime things that I've seen so far, you might as well just say this is one case where you should be glad that there is no second season. And thankfully, there never will be, because I think the show ended off on a perfect note. The manga, yeah, the manga itself left on a controversial subject, though. You can take it a look if you want to, but don't say I didn't warn you, because trust me, the manga is really not worth your time, though. But other than that, I think that's really what I need to say about Usagi Drop. I mean, it says a lot when you realize that someone in your family does want to watch something with you and still with that landslide, though. So I'm just gonna say Usagi Drop is still a pretty wonderful series. Go check it out if you haven't seen it already. And even if you're not into kids, you'll still find something there. I know I did. The next two entries on this list are going to revolve around, well, debut anime for different studios. But first, let's talk about David Productions. This shouldn't be a stranger to anyone who's heard of it if you're part of the anime community like I am. But if you're not familiar with this year's studio, they're mostly known for having a lot of stuff, though. They're mostly known for JoJo, which, if you haven't already guessed, I'm a huge JoJo fan myself with the anime and everything. But we need part 7, damn it! But honestly, they do have other works like else at work, but that's not the series I'm going for. And plus, it's a shonen series. So, what series did they do on their debut? Well, in this case, they worked on a little slice of life series known as Ristorante Paradiso. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, but Ristorante Paradiso really changed my mind in a big way. And by that, I mean they really did a lot with it, as is, though. Oh, and I don't mean that as in they never really had much going for it, though. I mean, like, they came a long way since they started doing this in themselves, though. By that, to the same token, let's talk about this show in of itself, though. The show itself is based on the manga that only lasted for one volume with another spin off series, but the basic premise itself is pretty established to do pretty well for itself. So let's go over it. So, Ristorante Paradiso is the story about a young woman by name Nicoletta who travels to Italy from Japan, and only for her to see her estranged mother, who just straight up left her because her grandparents seem to have only be, be the real parents of her, though. However, after realizing that her manage her fiance, who happens to be the owner of said restaurant, decides to go with Olga, Nicoletta's mother, but is to say that she doesn't like having women who have kids of their own. Well, I don't know if you came from Usagi Drop, but Usagi Drop's anime came out years after this anime was released. However, after trying to spill out the beans because she threatens to squeal on her, saying that she has her right to do for abandoning her, though. She decides to keep it a secret until then, though. Until realizing that when she starts working as in the Italian restaurant itself, with all these handsome gentlemen, all with a glasses fetish, as they say in the series. Hey, I wear glasses too. Can I come and join in your group? I'm terrible. Anyways, though, while still working at the restaurant, and from time to time, though, Nicoletta decides to learn more and more about these handsome young gentlemen, even if it's only for her to do so already, while still learn about the lives of them. Though I'm not gonna lie, though, this is basically Oron, except it was made for older women. Though that could be because of how many hosts there are in there. Though you do get to see how much Nicoletta does try, though. And I don't know if it's just me, but did anyone think that Nicoletta looked like an older and softer version of Nami? I mean, look at her. She has the red hair and the looks of her, though. And I know that they're animated by different studios because this was not animated by Toei Animation. As I said before, this was animated by David Production, the same studio who gave us JoJo. But I really think they came a long way since then. This is one case where they didn't have the bizarre things that they had made into JoJo, but I'm not sure if I find this a coincidence as well, though. But right when I was watching this, though, this was during the time when I was still catching up on Golden Wind, the same people who gave us an Italian and look of JoJo in a lot of ways. But where JoJo has a lot more shading and a lot more bolder colors with the bold to man service, this is more on the slice of life without the boldness into it, though. Though what is bold about this show is how much they came a long way since then, though. You have to give credit to David Productions, though. Despite this being a lot more, how we say, paler than that, it really did get me crave for a lot of foods when it comes right down to it, though. I don't know if it's just me, but whenever I watch the show for myself, I feel like I want to go into the kitchen and cook something for myself. Every time I'm watching something that falls around food, I want to get something to get from the kitchen and go back to eating when I'm watching, though. I guess that speaks volumes of what the show is like. And can I just say, this did want me to take a place to Italy? I mean, I'm quarter of Italian myself, though, so maybe I'm not too far fetched when I say that, though, but I don't really think it's that much of a stretch to say that this is definitely the case where I really want to go to a restaurant like this, though, but I probably wouldn't even if that was the case. Speaking of Golden Wind, though, right when I was watching this sheer show back in July of 2024, I saw the fan made where they actually did do not just to the style of Golden Wind in this animation, but also gave the way that's supposed to be peaceful and friendly, though. JoJo being peaceful and friendly? Nah, they would never go that far. Oh, I miss you, Bucciarati. But yeah, they actually did do a lot with this year's show, though. While I admit this is one case where I have to confess something, I'm just gonna say this right here and now. This show took me a hell of a hard time to watch at times. That's not to say the show is bad or anything, but the problem with it, at least for me, when I started watching it, I was going through jumble schedule after jumble schedule. If you've seen my community post of what I said in how my year of 2024 was, which was a roller coaster, as I said before. Then I won't repeat myself. What I will say though is that I had started watching the show, but one thing I will say is that how long it took me to watch this show. I'm gonna go on a side tangent for just a bit, but this show took me forever to watch. It took me from July of 2024 to January of this year in 2025 just to get this done. I don't know what it is with me watching small around shows that are around 11 episodes or shorter that take me long, but when it comes to longer shows, it takes me a short amount of time. Then again, I haven't really finished the other 20 remaining episodes as the time of making this video with Mermaid Melody, so I'm guessing I am a slow binge watcher. I hate it when I have to go through one show after the next. But I guess that's what happens when you're wrapped up into something you want to see for yourself. But I really do like what they do here, though. The animation really looks very Italian esque, really something that you would see, though. But like I said before, David Productions came a long way. This isn't something that you see in JoJo's case, though, where despite the series having from place to place that's not from Japan, you do get the sense of or just that they have a lot more going for it, though. And despite this series only 11 episodes long, it's really the trip to watch, though. If you're not like me who's slow at binge watching, you can watch this for yourself, though. But even I'll admit, I don't think anyone wants to see something too calming for themselves, though. But I personally don't mind a calming show. I don't really mind a slice of life show either, but even I'll admit they're not for everybody when it comes to that. That said, however, I still recommend this show. And this won't be the last time we'll see a studio from an anime's debut. Trust me, you'll know what I'm talking about when we get to it, though. So let's move on to the next series before I get too hungry. So the next two entries we're going to be talking about revolve around music. And as you guys know me by now, I gravitate onto a lot of kinds of music. But this time we're going to be gravitating into some music that's another debut for another studio. In this case, Mappa. Okay, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing Mappa right, so you can correct me if I'm wrong how to pronounce it though. But needless to say, while Mappa is known for a lot of more of what they are, they really have come a long way though. I mean, they started out for a long time, but if I had to list everything from their whole filmography here, we'll be here all day. They're mostly known for a lot of anime, such as Chainsaw Man, Vinland Saga, Jujutsu Kaisen, Banana Fish, Free, Fury on I Nice listeners. There's I said Dora Head Doro. I could go on, but I think you get my point. They're known for a lot of stuff on their resume as is, but this was also one of the cases where I don't really think I've ever gravitated more than I could say about what's about to come, though. So let's talk about their first ever work that ever and made it by collaborating with Studio Tezuka Productions with the show Kids on the Slope. I'm gonna be for real here though. I didn't expect myself to like Kids on the Slope at first glance, but the more I watched it this year, the more I regret not watching this beforehand. And honestly, I didn't understand what was the fuss about until I started watching it. And after watching all 12 episodes, it really gave me a real good impact. The series itself takes place in the summer of 1966. Our main character, Karo Nishimi, moves to Sase Nagasaki to live with his relatives. This is mostly due to the fact that his father keeps moving a lot of the goddamn time. Every time he goes someplace to get his business, though. However, Kaoru who doesn't really have that much to go for with his friendships. This isn't because he's not that friendly, it's because since his friendships never last that long every time he was so ready though. And by doing so, he does meet with two other kids though, one of which being the class president, Ritsuke, and the other one being Sentaru. All of them becoming close friends as the time goes on. While Kaoru, being an intelligent introvert and socially awkward kid though, never really he knows what to do with these friendships as such, though. But after experiencing a nausea because he goes through stress, he somehow realizes the only way he can help himself out is by going to to teach himself some jazz while still playing piano and Sue's though. And from there, his uh, friendship with Sentaru, the bad boy, gets still very kind of guy you want to have as your friend, decides to help him out though, while still going the process though. Now, I will say this year's show, despite what some people may tell you, I'm gonna say this right here and now. While I admit, yes, like Karu and Tsukimi beforehand, while I am a socially awkward person, I can't really say how I feel about this whole thing moving around a lot of times though. I moved to different houses from time to time, but never to different schools, so I can't really say what that's like. Although I did have a personal friend of mine who did have this when he was younger, so there you have that though. But other than that, you get to see how Kaoru goes through this though. I know some people are gonna start the obvious though, but let's go over those for a sec. First off, yes, as I said before, this does revolve around music, and unlike a lot of bands though that you see in a lot of other shows, this doesn't really say rock and roll or pop or anything. No, in this case, they go into jazz music. This is appropriate considering the time period, but it's also pretty they had a lot of things going for these here characters though. And I don't know if it's just me, but does anyone think that Karu looked like a combination between uh, wha- uh, between Kimihiro Watanuki from Holic and Otori from Aura? Ron, I don't know. Maybe it's because of how slender the boys are, or some combination of the glasses type, though. But I kind of am a sucker for male anime characters with black hair. Seriously, I can name a few that actually roll top of my tongue, though. Aside from that, though, I can't really go into too much into that because I don't want to talk about my favorite anime characters, specifically male characters, though. And even if I did that, that would take too much time to do so. But other than that, though, Kids on Slope did have a lot of things going for it, though. For example, guess who was part of the director Let's chair at this rate. Shinichi Hiro Watanabe. Now, Watanabe has been known to be in a lot of stuff, though, but his most stuff usually comes into jazz musics, though. If you're familiar with the name, though, you might know him best for something like Macross or the more popular series nowadays, Cowboy Bebop. But his fingerprints are in this year's show, and despite it being a jazz music show, they did pretty well for itself. Speaking of jazz music, I'm probably gonna hurt some people's feelings when I say I didn't think I would like jazz music after this year's show when I started watching it. That's not to say that jazz music is not good or anything for my taste. It's just I couldn't really tell what I was getting into. Thus, I actually didn't know what to think of it at first glance. But the more I listened to the music when watching the show, the more I started gravitating onto it, though. It became more and more than what it is for a lot of ways, though. You do see Kaoru struggling from time to time, but a lot of people say that the friendship is more than just that. The homoerotic tones between Sentaro and Kaoru are pretty much obvious. They're not undertone as much as, say, Utena did, but they did do pretty well for itself, though. But that said, however, though, I really hate saying that I'm just not a fan of Shonen Ai or Yaoi. That's not to say it's bad. I just can't get into the demographic or genre like some other people can. And honestly, this was animated by the same studio who gave us Yuri on Ice later on, so at least there's that going for it, though. My heart does go a long way when it comes to this show, but there were a lot of people who didn't come for just the jazz, but to learn about the friendships between Kaoru and Sentaru. I'm not going to spoil it for you so you can see it for yourself, though, but that ending at the end of the show really was bittersweet, to say the least. It's about what got into the show. And honestly, this is what the show is in a lot of ways. It's bittersweet to the point where you know how much these characters did grow over time. The sad thing is how much a lot of people bitch about the English dub. Okay, I don't want to say this in spite of all that, but it has to be addressed. The English dub itself is not that bad. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not god tier like, say, Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood or something like, say, Death Note or Yu Yu Hakusho levels or anything, but I think personally it did pretty well for itself. There are some lines that feel phoned in, and some of the lip syncs are a bit off putting sometimes, though. But I think the only reason why I didn't feel like there was that bad was probably because, well, guess who was voicing Karu? If you're familiar with my channel for a while, you already know I talked about Chris Patton, who's been a voice actor for quite a lot of stuff, though. Hell, if I even if I did list through everything this guy did, we'd be here all day. But I think this may be one of his more lesser known shows out there. The series itself was licensed by Sentai Filmworks, so it makes sense that they have some dubs that may be good, but others could have been a little better. They're not as have, have fun and tier like on the others, I would say, like say Evangelion, but it's dubbed enough already to give it a recommendation, though. Though I think I may be in the minority when I say that, considering I do have a feeling that a lot of people are going to say you only like the English dub because so on. No, that's not really why. The only reason why I think the English dub is not as bad as people say it is because that's the only way I could access to this year's show, though. Yeah, there is a sub, but you can only go on to Crunchyroll to get to the sub if you want to see it for yourself. Other than that, though, the show did pretty well for its own good. And despite being 12 episodes long, in the manga, they did pretty well for what they adapted, though. There are some things I wish they could stop doing, like, say, the misunderstandings or basically Karu pushing people away, but I get that's the point kind of the show. They're trying to show the different aspects to it, though. This isn't really, say, a modern show where it takes place in, say, the 2000s or 2010s era where they can call on cell phones or go on computer. This takes place in the mid to late 60s, and it shows, especially for how they do stuff. And despite how outdated some of the stuff can be at times for some of the background, I think it does flow well in its own self when it comes to that. Jazz music may not be everyone's specialty, but if you can get through that, though, you really can't go wrong with this show. But can I just say, before we go into the next chapter, am I the one who thought that the show was sane in at first glance? Maybe it's because of the animation and everything, but as I said before, they usually use Josei as a realistic look to it. Maybe it's because Kaoru and Sentaru look like they came from a shonen or seinen series in my taste, but I love how they established this a little more, though. Then again, it was published by Flowers Comics, a shoujo and josei magazine in of itself, though. So that's what is to it, though. And you can still do no wrong. I wouldn't actually say too much on Kids on the Slope, but if you can get behind the undertones, if you're not into that or something along those lines, then you really can't go wrong with this year's show in itself, though. Trust me, it's still one worth watching. So after that, however, we move on to another musical series, but one that, like Kids on a Slope, is also a must watch. But would I be a bad person if I said I didn't feel this one at first glance, even when starting to watch it at first? That show being Nodame Cantabile. Nodame Cantabile is one of those shows that, unlike the other show I mentioned before, then it's actually one of those more orchestra based series. Yeah, where Kids on the Slope is mostly on jazz music, this one falls under the orchestra category. So let's go over it at first. The series itself focuses around a young man by the name of Shinichi Chiaki. Chiaki is an arrogant, multilingual, and very perfectionist young man. However, after realizing he can't go anywhere due to his fear of flying and swimming, he's pretty much grounded on Japan while going to a musical academy. Along the way, he meets this cheerful young lady, Miyuki, or is Megumi Noda, or as she likes to call herself, Nodame. Nodame is really the opposite of Chiaki, where she's more of a mess, but still has that kind of hearted take on her character, though. However, after realizing how much they both slowly get together, though, they start her to becoming more and more her close, more and more close as time goes on, while still trying to find footing when it comes to music. Even though Chiaki is more is on doing some work orchestra while still doing conducting. While Nodame, while she can't really read music, she's really more best known to listen to it while still playing it, though. Even if Chiaki starts to begin Nodame's unusual qualities while still slowly coming on to it, even though claiming as her husband. I will say, for a show like this, I wasn't expecting myself to like it, though. Not to say I find it bad, but, well, this is one case where I thought it was kind of boring at first glance, though. I'm not saying that it's a bad show or anything, but after I started watching more and more of it, this is definitely the case where unlike the next show we'll be talking about, I actually watched the entire show in of itself, though. See, in case you guys don't know, Nodame Cantabile has 3 seasons. Yeah, unlike a lot of the stuff we've covered so far on this list, this one's actually spun off from 3 different manga. Nodame Cantabile, the first season, the second season being Nodame Cantabile Patty Hen, and this third one, fittingly enough, finale. All of which are gathered to be, well, the first season had 23 episodes. The second and most second and third one had only 11 episodes. Can I just say I took a break from watching the other two because personally I didn't think I would be liking them at first, though. Not to say that I didn't think the story was going on, though. It just felt like I didn't think there was much to it, though, at first. But after watching more of this your show, I started realizing that despite what you think of these two, though, this is more of an opposites attract thing. This may or may not be everyone's cup of tea, but personally, I don't really mind it that much as long as the characters are likable. Yeah, Chiaki can be a bit arrogant and a perfectionist, but I don't think he really meant it to be, say, in a way that you think he's just too arrogant for his taste. He just wants to get the job good and done with. If anything that's dealt with, though, even though it's not anything like that, though, it's still pretty nice to see these two get together. And don't you dare just say that Nodame is just weird for the sake of being weird. Despite having her unusual antics, though, you're gonna feel so bad for her once you start seeing the show for yourself. And honestly, as she did say at first glance she wanted to become a kindergarten teacher, but considering that she might get made fun of, yeah, a lot of people decided against it for her. Not just only that, it's also pretty clear that she does care for those around her, even if she does have those moments, though. But can I just say for the record, I feel bad this had to be the last series that ever aired on Animax. Okay, for those who don't know, Animax was a TV broadcast television network where they basically had a lot of anime. They usually broadcast it to promote other anime and the like, but ones that really gravitate others though. I heard that Holic was on there though, and if I was a kid watching some of these anime, you definitely bet I would watch some of these here, including Holic. But Nodame Cantabile was actually the last one before this the network actually shut down, and sadly that has to go with the English dub. Now I'm not sure if it's just my copy when I first saw this year's show, but whenever I started to watch this show, I had to go on 9 anime just to watch this entire show except for episode 6. I don't know if it's just me, but whenever I go to watch episode 6, I really had it muted the whole time, and I don't know what had happened to it though. The English dub itself is on, say, Watch Cartoon, which is where I found this year's show, but I wouldn't recommend watching it there because the audio was jacked up. Like, they felt like they were her going so far as to record it on TV when there's not really anything TV recorded, though. I'm not sure if it was just my copy, but that's what it felt like, though. Plus, the English dub, okay, for those who don't know, the English dub is solid. Not really great, not anything too horrible, just fine. It's not anything too bad though, but I think the only voice I liked was Milch's voice because at least he kind of sounded like his Japanese voice actor. The others were just hit or miss at times. I guess Chiaki does do pretty well for the team's sake, but Nodame really it depends on that. But if you like English dubs, I would say go check it out for yourself, but you're in a good news, bad news situation. The good news is you can watch the English dub for yourself and not have to worry about what they're saying if you don't have to use subtitles. So there's that going for it. The bad news is that at least when it came to the second and final seasons of the show, they had so far as to make it in subtitles, and at least I can understand what they're saying. But when I wanted to see what the sub sounded like in the first season, they didn't have it on 9 anime, nor did they have it on Watch Cartoon, which is where I usually watch a lot of my stuff. So I don't know if it's because they don't put captions anymore, but regardless of that, though, the English dub itself is not something I call too dull for its taste. But then again, it was licensed in Los Angeles, which means it never got a worldwide release. Other than that, though, I still think Nodame Cantabile did pretty well for so good, though. It may not be a show for everyone, but I think you can get into it if you've seen a show called Your Lie in April. Yeah, that's a series I would recommend too, but Your Lie in April was more of a younger demographic, in this case, shonen. As for this series, it's more for an older demographic. So in Shoteze case, though, not to say you can't enjoy either one, though, but honestly, if you're in the mood for it, you can't go wrong with this. And honestly, it does seem like one I would recommend, though, because I was part of someone who played the piano. I can't read music that great either. I have to have someone tell me what the keys are every now and then. Though in Nodame in Bow's case, I will say it did pretty well for itself, though. Despite being an orchestra related show, if you're a fan of Your Lie in April, I recommend Nodame Cantabile a watch. It may be much more adult stuff, though, but then again, a lot of these here are for adults to watch. So there you have it. Anyways, before we get into more of it, let's move on into the next show. Okay, so I did say that there were going to be two shows that were both from shifting from shojo to josei. And here comes the uh, second and final one for this video. In this case, Honey and Clover. I'm gonna just say this right here and now. Honey and Clover made me both laugh and I feel like crying at the same time when watching it, though. And I mean it. This show is brilliant for what they have done for this year. But honestly, you're asking yourself, how can it do that? Well, let's go over it first. The series itself focuses around five college students at an art school in Tokyo, three of whom, mostly the boys, are all living with each other. Here, Yuta, in this case, though, Yuta, Takamoto, and says Shinobu are all characters that have their own ways of looking at things in our artistic world, though, while still trying to search for jobs and everything. Oh, however, the two students, Ayumi and Hagumi are both very artistic in their own right, though. Despite this, however, though, they're still trying to do some stuff that's end up of the lives ups and downs of life while still interacting with each other in a very bittersweet tone of nostalgia here. Now, I didn't say anything about this before though, but this is yet another series like Nodame Cantabile and Utena was animated by JC staff. And I didn't mention this though, but honestly, I think the animation here, unlike say Nodame Cantabile where they use obvious CGI, which is pretty degrading if it really hurts to watch at times. It hurt me to watch at times. But honestly, when it comes to Honey and Clover, I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like this show would be right up there if I watched this as a kid. Granted, this is not really something made for little kids all the time in mind. It's more for a teenager and say adult demographic, if anything to judge by. Though honestly, I do like what they did with these here students. Each of them have their own unique personalities, and in this case, they have their reason for what it is, though. Like I said, though, oh, if you're anyone who's part of the artistic brand, maybe you can find something here, though. The whole series itself is more of a bittersweet tone, though. Sometimes it goes so far as to say that you can watch it while still laughing, and other times crying. I don't know if it's just me, but I kept up laughing and crying when watching this show for myself. I mean it. All these characters are as good as gold as they come, though. I don't think there's ever been a character I disliked here in the main cast. All of them have their own unique charm to it. If I have to say which character made me laugh the most, it would have to be Shinobu. Yeah, he's crazy, but he's also a genius at times. So when it comes right down to it, though, and Yuta, while he isn't really anything that you call a far character, though, he does have his ways of showing that, despite having his own ups and downs, though, he really does care for Hagumi. Hagumi is this blonde-haired girl who is, I have to say, she's really freaking adorable, and she's not a little kid either. She's really 18 or 19 in this case, and she's really a very passionate artist, though. You see her sculpting, sometimes even reaching to see how she uses her eyes to sense things. It's really one of the most artistic traits I've ever seen in a series like this, though. Now, I will say, despite this having its ups and downs, though, I said that it seemed it's like to me I would watch this as a kid because, well, look at this animation and don't tell me it didn't look like it came from a 2000s era though. Or maybe it's just me, but it looked like one of those shows I could have watched when it was on a preschool show where they had very texture and beautiful pale colors with it though. Though most of it does take place around say the winter time, so maybe that's partially what it is though. I always have this mindset where despite not watching the show as any of shows as a kid, they always seem to turn my mind around saying, I wonder if I watched it at this kind of setting or this kind of setting. Gotta say though, it does it's ready. And when the students themselves do navigate between love and friendship and growing up, you do get to give a shit of what this like though. Though I think the first season did that pretty well. Yeah, this show lasted for 2 seasons. The first season having 24 episodes, which I don't know about you guys, but the pacing itself was masterpiece. It wasn't too slow, it wasn't too fast. Hell, it wasn't even padded to hell. It was still something I still could get into though. But the second season, I'm just gonna say this right here and now. I don't hate the second season. I just felt like there was something kept keeping me not enjoying it as much as I thought it would have, though. Not saying it's a bad season, just felt a little weaker. Like the pacing itself was a bit slower. Some the jokes could have been a little hits instead of misses, and there are times where the characters can be a bit much at times, though. But other than that, though, I still think they did very well for itself, though. But can I just say, when watching this show, I thought at first glance both Hagumi and you and me when watching this here, I thought at first they both looked like kids, like they kind of looked like that. But no, as I established before, Hagumi is 18 or 19. Ayami, however, is really around 20 or 21 years old. So about the ages of of these here boys. But honestly, I do love having a bittersweet series every now and then. It definitely it depends on what you're looking for. In fact, there were moments where I felt like this show could have been right up there, right up my alley. I always want a show that's a perfect balance between good and something that shows the upsides and downsides. Sure, it's not for everybody. There are times where it can be a bit egregious for some people, but I don't think that's really a bad thing, though, because there's a character in here, I'm not going to spoil who it is, did make me tear up what happened to her, and she's not really part of the main cast. You'll see her when if you ever watch the show for yourself. But in all honesty, I love what they do with these year shows that revolve around college students. You don't see a lot of college students in a lot of anime, or in this case, maybe I haven't seen a lot of them up to this point. But I do like that they show a real friendship, like something that you can actually gravitate on and say, this reminds me of back at the time when I used to be with my friends at school at times. I know what it does to me when I was in high school. Granted, I didn't have that many friends, but even with that said, it's like I said before, friends are more than just friends, they're family. And despite how funny the moments can be, there are touching moments where it did tear me up at times. I will say it is one of those shows you have to be in the right mood for, but it's nonetheless, I still loved Honey and Clover. Though I have to wonder why they call it Honey and Clover if there's nothing to do with honey, although they did show a clover though. And can I just say the first opening really caught my attention pretty well. It was animated in a stop motion way, which I never seen a lot of anime do. In this case, for what I've seen so far, but honestly, they did pretty well for its own self, though. And I do give them props for coming a long way since then. Granted, this is definitely a lot better animated than what most people say it is, though. But I think it's mostly for how well it's hold up to this day. I mean, some of this stuff did come out way ahead of its time. Like, say, you have to find yourself, and I'm not gonna spoil what happens though, but it did leave a pretty nice taste in my mouth. Honey and Clover, because sometimes it's best to go on with a break here and there to see both the ups and downs in life. Anyways, let's get on into the next show. You know, I'm probably gonna get a little flack if I say this, but it needs to be said. I've seen way too many sports to call myself a sports fan. Now, I'm not saying I don't like sports. If anything, sports have their reasons to be good. But when it comes to something that comes to me in mind, I've only seen a few of them that do come across my mind. Hahime no Ippo, which is about boxing, Slam Dunk, which is about basketball, Sakata Tsubasa, about soccer, or Aim for the Ace when it's about tennis, along with Prince of Tennis, Hayuki with volleyball, or say there's some others with baseball, football, rugby. I could go on, but I think you guys get my point. I'm not saying I don't like sports, but I'm just saying I've seen too many to give myself a recommendation until I saw this year's show. Yeah, as much as it sounds pretty obvious what kind of sports anime would be on the Josei list, you guys should probably guess what it is, though. But if you don't, let's get this out of the way. I've played many sports. Not all of them. I've only played a handful of them. But even with that consideration in, none of those have to go with what I've watched so far and what got me hooked on it immediately. So, ladies and gentlemen, Chihayafuru. Oh, yes, Chihayafuru. This is definitely the case where I was kind of nervous when watching this year's show at first glance. But at first Yeah, I can understand what was the fuss about when they said this. This was on every list I've seen. Even if you haven't seen it, you've actually really know that the anime's history among Chihayafuru has its own history behind it, though. So you might be asking yourself the big question: what's the big fuss about Chihayafuru? Is it really that good? Well, let's go over it, shall we? The series itself focuses around our main protagonist, Chihaya Ayase, who bonds with two classmates, Arate and Taichi, who seem to be friends since they were in elementary school. However, after her witnessing Arata getting picked on for literally no reason other than kids being little dipshits, it's here where Chihaya stands up at them to stop picking on them. No, along the way, where Chihaya seems to be pretty happy for standing up to him, though. Arata decides to give thanks in return by having him her come over to his place and realizing that there's a dream to be had here, though. The whole idea about following their own dreams, though. However, Chihaya says that she wants to encourage her big sister into beauty contests. However, I'm up there with Arata because Arata says that that's not really a dream if you don't have your own dream and to do what you want, though. As such, though, the kids themselves starts playing a game that's not anyone outside of Japan has played that often, but it's one that's part of the main sport of this year series, Karuta. Karuta is a card game, but not just any card game. It's a sports kind of game. It's even stated that some time in the series, though, there are champions out there. See, whenever there's a boy or a man playing Karuta and compete in it, they usually call themselves the master of Karuta. But if it's a girl or a woman, they call themselves the queen. And honestly, when it comes right down to it, though, the series itself focuses on how much the edge of your seats are going on to know where the series is headed. Way too many for me to name as is, but honestly, the games themselves, while doing so ready. However, after growing up apart from each other, though, while Chihaya and Taichi want to play with Arata again after years of being separated because Arata had to go to a different school, Arata refused to play after that, though, because 4 years prior, before they came back, though, it's here where we see that his grandfather has passed away all of a sudden due to a sudden illness. Unfortunately, while Chihaya does want to make a Karuta game for anyone to play at the school, though, she and Taichi decide to open a club in order to have their members to play in the game, all of which they have to have 5 members. And if they don't, the club will shut down afterwards, though. No matter what happens, though, Chihaya and her new founding and classmates, along with Taichi, go ahead and compete into a lot of competitive terms in these here tournaments, even if it means going through tournament rounds when who's already, though. And yes, Chihaya does pass out every time she does well in the game, though. Though, honestly, when it comes right down to it, the whole series itself really had me at the edge of my seat. Out of all the Josei anime I've seen this far, everybody, this one was the longest one I've watched, and it got me hooked immediately. I don't know how I did this, though, but guess what? This show has 74 episodes long. Well, 72 if you wanted to exclude the two recaps, which I certainly did. But nonetheless, this show had me at the edge of my seat. I've watched this from time and time again to see where it's taking. And despite this being a sports anime, it got me more at the edge of my seat than any other sports I've seen combined. It's really that great when watching it, though. I kid you not. Watching this show, at first glance, I thought it was going to be some kind of love triangle. Granted, that is in the show in of itself, though, but I wasn't in for the romance. I was more into the game. And that's quite surprising for someone like me when I'm usually into something like romance. That being said, however, what got me into Chihayafuru was not just because of its game, but because of how much the character development goes on, though. This shouldn't be a surprise to anyone, though, but anyone who's watched Chihayafuru probably could tell this almost looked like a shoujo series at first glance. I mean, you don't see it, the cute and boys, the beautiful of the character, and also being teenagers and all that, but the only reason why it's fit into the category of Josei is because of the immature themes they put into it about slice of life and stuff. though. Yeah, again, Slice of Life is no stranger to Josei in of itself, though. But I think at this rate, it does make sense. For those who don't know what I mean, though, believe it or not, Chihayafuru's mangaka was actually part of a Karuta club when she was younger. And honestly, to this day, this was what gave her the inspiration for it, though. 3 seasons of 74 episodes was not a torture in the slightest, though. And you could definitely say that's not something you say in a lot of other shows. I know other shows have had longer episodes, oh, linger episodes and all that stuff though. But when it comes to Chihayafuru, I was already hooked right when I saw the game. Though I mean, yeah, the first few episodes really delve into how Chihaya and Taichi and Arata got into it, though. But that's really from the bare minimum, though. And I'm not going to spoil anything about Arata, but let's just say he's not in the team all the time per se. He does compete into the this year game from time and time again, though, but it's really more occasional than one meets, though. And honestly, I love what they do with these characters, though. Even the rivals, despite it being this, well, a sports game, which of course you're going to have rivals in them, they're all still likable in their own way. Yeah, some of them, like say Ayas, and say, and this year Shinobu would have been a lot would be a lot better though. But I think in this case though, I don't really mind the rivals though. They don't overstay their welcome, and honestly, the whole thing that really got to me was how the game was presented though. I don't know if it's just me, even though oh, I'm probably gonna say this out loud, but I'm a sucker for any card game. Not really say training card games though. I mean actual card games that I play for myself. Like say solitaire, Uno, Bridge, you name it, I probably played that card games though. But Karuta is probably one of those shows that I actually gravitated on more than I can say though. But can I just say I watched this in sub because I prefer it though? I don't know if it's just me, but the dub itself is not terrible. But I feel like the sub itself was the better option for me personally because they actually do go into more of what goes on with it, and the Japanese itself explains it a lot better. Though I didn't really watch a lot of this here in English, though I watched more of it in sub, and I personally think it was the better option for me. Though I think that could be the minority when I say that, though. But there are some people who want this show to have a fourth season, which, while I can't say I don't see where they're coming from, it does leave a lot to be desired, though. That said, however, I think this may just be me, but I'm kind of glad we stopped at 3 seasons, though. The fourth season probably wouldn't be necessary anyway, because it basically shows about how Chihaya and the other two boys, which one are going to get together, and there's also a spin off starting a new protagonist. Not against those, but I just feel like the show is great for how it turned out to be. And apparently this went on hiatus though. I mean, Madhouse is no stranger to having longer shows though, like say Cardcaptor Sakura and Monster, but I think in this rate they did pretty well for what they had in this year's show. My heart does go out to the people who gave this here a recommendation because if anything to judge by, this is one case where I feel like it's one you shouldn't skip out on. And really, I couldn't think of a better note to wait. We're only at 12 shows. I guess there's only one show left, though. So you might be asking yourself, what's the last show I'm going to cover for this Jose list? Well, you're going to find out. That's right. Of all the shows I've mentioned so far, you may have noticed I talked more about slice of life and sometimes, well, romance and coming of age stories. But not a lot of them fall into the comedy category, unless you count the Magical Girl Ore, which is more on parody, though. But let's talk about one more show, because honestly, it's one that I don't hear a lot of people talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, Polar Bears Cafe. This is one case where this is one of the weirder options for me to end the list on, but honestly, I had my reason for it though. The main show itself is basically falls around everyday lives of a group of animals, primarily on Panda, who is, well, a panda. Then there's a polar bear who runs a cafe, a sarcastic penguin, and also some humans along the way, though. All while having comedy ensues, though, and as well as having some Japanese puns that kind of reminded me of Pazzolero if it was still on, though, even though this came out years after Pazzolero ended, though. From what I can tell, though, despite when it comes right down to it, Polar Bear Cafe is one show that I still think that it may be one of the weirder things I've seen so far. But can I just say the weird thing doesn't mean it's bad? It's really one of the more comedic shows, and while it's more on slapstick than, say, over the top comedy at times, though, it's still one that really gets to me, though. You have all these animals and humans that coexist, which is something you don't see in a lot of anime all the time. But it kind of reminded me if BoJack Horseman had a lighthearted series, though, but with different animals instead of the horses. Though they mostly focus on other animals like, say, polar bear, or in this case, panda, penguin, and sometimes the humans interacting with each other. There are other animals like, say, a llama, sloth, baboon, and stuff like that, but nonetheless, they're all still pretty likable in their own way. Oh, and also, this here show came out way before or We Bear Bear. So if you ever see the connection between polar bear and grizzly bear and panda, then yeah, you're gonna see that connection. Also, there's a koala in this year's show, so you don't have to press your nose on the window too further for that, though. One thing I will say about this show, despite this being a more modern Japanese setting than ever before, though, it's one of those shows that didn't take me long to binge through. This series is 50 episodes long, and I watch 5 episodes per day, so about over a week and when watching it. But honestly, I did get a good laugh every now and then when watching it, though. Every episode has mostly a two short format, but sometimes there are three, or if they continue, they usually put it in all into one and part together. And honestly, that's not something you see in a lot of anime these days. Not just shoujo say anime, but anything in anime in general, though. This is one case where, despite this being one of the more unknown, underrated it's, underdogs out there, I still think they did pretty well in of itself, though. And yeah, before you ask, the polar bear is very calm and soothing, like Ice Bear was in We Bear Bears. So you can definitely see that in a lot of ways, though. While I admit this is a lighthearted series, though, they don't really go dark or anything like that. Some of the stuff they do in here is pretty questionable. Like some of the times the animals can get drunk at times, but I really don't think that should be much of a problem because, well, it's still a pretty fun series when you watch it for yourself, though. It may not hit well for everybody, maybe, but Group Hero did pretty well for itself. But can I just say some of the humans did look like they came from rejects from Pokemon? I know that they weren't made by the same studio, but one of the characters, Mr. Honda, Panda Bear's boss, who works at the zoo, actually does remind me of a Brock in some ways, though, but he's unlucky with girls, like Brock is. But other than that, though, I don't think that's really too much to say as it is, though. The show itself is pretty uh, heartwarming, pretty cute, and it's still one I wouldn't know how else to end this here list on. My props to making this list really has gone on record too much as it is, though, but I don't think that's really gonna hurt anyone when I say that this is a pretty good show to end it on. And with that, that concludes the list of shows that I've